3, 2, 1.
What is done cannot be undone. The Founder's fire has failed, and now we are complete, whole. The shadows will not save you. I am... Hush. Be quiet. She is here. Do not let her find you. Expose their corruption. Be careful, and return to me.
The title of this video isn't a lie. Scott Cawthon already ended the book debate, and all of us, including me, missed it. But today, that changes. I wanted to get into this video as quickly as possible, but as always, welcome back everyone. Hope you're having a great day, as I'm about to make it better. For today, we're solving book debate with Scott's own words, and seeing how that affects everything. Though, let's be honest, the debate isn't ending anytime soon, but I can dream. But let's not waste time. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Now let's get right into the video. Generic sci-fi intro out of the way, let's start with a brief recap of the book debate. The book debate has ravaged the community since the year 2019 with the announcement and soon release Up Into the Pit, first book in the FNaF's FrightsFiction anthology series, which was Goosebumps-style FNaF books with an overarching story, that being the Stitch Wave Stingers, telling us the story of Lawson, Andrew, and Jake against Afton and Eleanor. It didn't take long for these stories to quickly cause division among fans, ranging from the dates of 1985 being the date for the MCI, the number of MCI victims being 5 or 6, the identity of the vengeful spirit, the fate of Afton, the nature of the shadows. The list goes on and on with the theory debates that this book series started. Even the sequel series, Tales from the Pizzaplex, didn't end this debate either. While many were more open to it being game-like compared to Frights, it had the same debates, ranging from the creator of the Mimic to the identity of Bloodtrap and Burntrap. Certain things have boosted the popularity of Tales in comparison to Frights, from small things as the water ball in FNaF 6 location matching Gil's water ball in the epilogues, to a tiger plush in Help 1 or 2's update, leading many to believe Tales games wholeheartedly. Meanwhile, Frights remained dubious and divided due to the conflicting variations of Into the Pit, such as the new game that came out and the interactive novel, the latter of which is often assumed to be game-line by many fans. And that's my brief summary. Well, as brief as I could do. However, I'm here to tell you that the answer isn't so simple, as it always has been in FNaF. But by now, you may be asking, what is this amazing evidence that Scott ended the book debate? And that evidence is Mangle's gender. Not even joking. For context, let's go back to 2015, where Scott made a comment replying to the endless debates on the gender of Mangle. This is well known, we all know this, but many missed what Scott actually said. Many believe Scott is joking that Mangle's gender is a yes. That isn't right. Read closely. He was answering if Mangle's a boy or a girl, and his answer to that question was yes. He is saying that Mangle is both a boy and a girl. This actually becomes surprisingly clear when we remember that Mangle actually has 2 heads, and is referred to by male and female pronouns, and Ultimate Custom Night has 2 voices, one male, one female.
Don't be afraid. Soon you will look just like me. Beautiful. Now I get to play take apart and put back together. You won't feel a thing.
Mangle is both a boy and a girl. This was seen to have to be the in-universe reason as well, as there'd be no other way to explain the second head. Meaning, while Scott was joking, he did give a real answer, which, let's be honest, fits Scott's personality really well, hiding a true answer within a troll. But you may be wondering, Draz, in all the great Cawthon, how does Mangle's gender solve the books? Well, that's because he did the exact same thing again. In January 2024, after a fake email of Scott seemingly confirming Tales games exploded, Scott left a comment on a post debunking it, giving a trollish answer to the book debate. Considering what people are saying about the canonicity of the books, yes, that is correct. I hope that clears things up. Everyone have a great weekend. Wouldn't you agree that this sounds very familiar? Many have pointed out it is the same thing as the Mangle comment, but didn't realize what that would fully mean. When he answered about Mangle, it was a troll, but it also was a real answer. Mangle's both a boy and a girl. So when you see this, shouldn't the same logic apply? That's the key thing to remember. If we can identify that the Mangle comment was a real answer and is doing the same thing here, then there should be a real answer hidden in the troll. Consider as well that Scott knows there are two main sides of the book debate. One side says the books aren't canon to the games, and the other side says they are canon to the games. So just like with Mangle, when he says yes to both sides of the canonicity debate, he must be saying that they're both canon and not canon. This would make sense just by asking the question. If Frights and Tales were clearly meant to be gameline, for example, and Scott wanted that to be clear, why hide behind cryptic comments and small clues that wouldn't actually confirm anything? If Scott's original words on Steam, then it was meant to be obviously gameline from the start. Why drag out for over 5 years? The same thing would also apply to Team Parallels or non-canon as well. If these books were meant to be a part of the new era of FNaF, moving on from the past, why never confirm either side? Unless the answer was more complex, and you couldn't outright confirm either side of the debate, just like how you couldn't confirm if Mangle's a boy or a girl, since there was nuance. It would also be just like how you couldn't answer which ending of FNaF 3 is canon, because it's nuance. They both are. Both sides are correct. So what this would mean is, however, that somehow FNaF's Frights and Tales from the Pizzaplex are canon to the games, but also not canon to the games, which, in that case, how in the Scott is that possible? Well, the answer to that, my friend, is one word: fiction. Yes, the answer is fiction, as I believe there's only one theory that fits with Scott's statement. It obviously can't just be Frights and Tales games, as if they were literally all gameline, how in any way are they not canon? While on the opposite end, how are they game canon if they're just parallels? Scott established from the start that the anthologies are different than the novels, but if it's just parallels, it's just pretty much the same. But one theory does mend this contradiction, and its name is Frights and Tales Fiction. For reference, to make this easier, unless I specify otherwise, just group Tales with Frights when I say Frights Fiction. Frights Fiction and its partner Tales Fiction are the theories that propose that FNaF's Frights and Tales are in-universe books made by FNaF Entertainment. As in, these are literal books a FNaF fan in-universe can buy and read. They're books made by Fazbear to fictionalize all the various rumors and things said about them in the past and present, making them unbelievable. Basically, the ultimate gaslight. So when you compare Frights Fiction to Scott's official statements, it does fit the bill. The theory is like, yeah, they're canon because they exist in the world as real books, inspired by or based on real things, but they're also not literal one-to-one events that happen. So you use parallels, clues, and themes to gather lore. As an alternative way of saying it, they're canon because they exist literally in the world and have some basis in real events, but they're also not canon because they're fiction and not literal. This one comment by Scott isn't the only evidence for Frights Fiction either. Take the very start of Into the Pit for example, where Oswald and his dad watch a movie, and it makes a point of the new one being set in the same universe as the original, but a cheap knockoff of the original. This works best under Frights Fiction, as Frights would be a cheap knockoff of the original stuff, but it is set in the same universe. Now one could argue that this conversation was just foreshadowing that the ball pit memory of the MCI is distorted and inaccurate, being a cheap knockoff. But the problem I have with that is, both the book, game, and interactive novel treat the ball pit memory as if it's the real event as it occurred, with the only real distortion being William being replaced by the pit body monster. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if the ball pit memory is a cheap knockoff that's being referred to when it has been depicted as a real memory, especially in Return to the Pit, where it's just straight up time travel at that point. Not excluding that when Jake visits the ball pit memories in the epilogues, they're not super distorted by default, so why should we assume differently for the ball pit memory of the MCI? Going beyond Into the Pit, the story Prankster also had meta clues for us that got pointed out in the Ultimate Guide, one of these being a teaser for Tales, Even More Frights, and the other being Stinger Root, which clearly relates to the Stitch Wave Stingers. While Root means up for dispute or has little relevance, which would not match if it's all game's timeline, but does match if it is fiction, being that the events of the Stingers are moot since they never actually happened. I wouldn't say they're irrelevant, but they are uncertain and disputed events. Even in the scrap story, The Scoop, it shows us an entire meta FNaF fanbase like the real one, beyond just one from the actual Pizzeria franchise, including even a FNaF theory forum that's clearly a reference to the FNaF Reddit. You even have evidence in the games as well, like Security Breach, reading from arcade games, those novel ones being of the Flash Trap Chaser, Fetch, and Ella. This depicts Fazbear marketing the horror creations because, don't be mistaken, their marketing and theme are horror, so it would make sense to have arcade games inspired by the books. I just can't see why those would be there otherwise. There's just no real reason. A lot of 1:45 AM isn't something Fazbear still produces. It's an old toy. I don't see any reason why Fazbear would acknowledge her existence unless they're acknowledging the existence of the story she came from. Don't forget too, this is the same series that not only turned FNAF 1 to 4 in the indie games in-universe, but also sister location and even FNAF 6, as shown in the story The Monty Within, with also used Sam being brought into the picture since voice lines from them get referenced in the new games and books. This would only be a continuation of that same idea of the indie games. Anyway, if you think about it, why would Scott turn sister location and FNAF 6 in the indie games when he could have stopped at 1 to 4 and How 1? Ignoring correctly the source of the information, it is said all 6 games happen in the Fright series, most of FNAF 6 in particular, being a basis for the Stitch Wave storyline. If Frights requires that FNAF 6's happen, and is in-universe fiction, you would actually have a reason why Scott would make FNAF 6 an indie game, since it would be required for the narrative of the books to work and even make sense. Think about it too, the logbook would nearly be the exact same thing here, as it was probably made by Fazbear's Frights, given the various FNAF 3 references and the marketing presentation of the book. And if that's true, the basis of the indie games is pretty much the exact same thing with Fazbear's Frights, but turned up to the max, where instead of an attraction based on the rumors of Fazbear, they're games plus a VR game with horror attractions. Fazbear Entertainment clearly took a page out of Fazbear's Frights playbook. So, if Fazbear Entertainment were making a FNAF franchise, why would they stop at games exactly? And why wouldn't they capitalize off the brand with more mediums and go beyond just making a fake guidebook like Fazbear's Frights did? Even in Tales, you have the story about the storyteller, which shows they made a storyteller AI that replaces real writers. Even if in the story, he was designed initially just for games, why wouldn't they use that to pop out more books and do exactly what Hanyer said the indie games were supposed to do? Tell more fictional stories that may or may not be inspired by true events. The fact that the storyteller is in the book at all, regardless if it's fiction or parallels or canon, should tell us something big about how Fazbear operates. And as shown, we already have book references in Security Breach, and while some may point out the Joy of Creation reference on the arcade machines as if that disproves it, Scott did say the Joy of Creation is a part of the fanverse, and the tagline for the fanverse is, because every franchise needs a multiverse. So this meta multiverse idea is clearly a thing that isn't going away anytime soon. There will also have to be an in-universe reason for why the arcade machine is there. So what that would imply is an in-universe fanverse, but this time ran by Fazbear. All this ultimately shows is a theme, as Scott has made it abundantly clear that the way Fazbear works, they squeeze the juice out of Phrase with as many types of media as they can. This all fits the meta-narrative this series has followed since How 1 in 2019. This would also match with how Scott views the books. In the first interview when talking about a movie script based on the novel trilogy, he said this about the books.
And, originally the script was going to be based on the books, which eventually I decided was not the way to go. The books were originally designed for people who just wanted extra stories. They wanted a little bit more detail, more story, but that was never intended to be the definitive story of Five Nights at Freddy's.
If the books were strictly gameline, it would fly in the face of Scott's whole mindset. Why would he say this during the interview, which would be during the time frame Frights was being made, if he was just going to make the books a replacement for the game's story, being a required reading for the main story and the fate of central characters like William or Charlie? It doesn't really add up when you think about it. Hey, Future Jazz here. I recorded this section a week or so ago before the Secret Nurture release, but I did want to add this in as I do think it supports what I've been saying. In the trailer, we're presented with Edwin's factory warehouse, where the mimic was built and David, well... Based on this trailer, it seems that we are being sent by Faz Entertainment to retrieve the mimic from Edwin's warehouse. Now, if you read the original mimic story, this may seem very familiar plot-wise, as it continues when Faz was sent Team A and B to retrieve Edwin's technology but instead got slaughtered by the mimic, with us being the singular Team C. But you might have noticed some things in the trailer that seem to conflict with what we're told in the books. Firstly, what is Murray's costume manner? Edwin in the books did not make costumes. He started out as a robotics company that made robotic vacuum cleaners. They did well for a time before everything fell apart and the company was bought out by Fazbear Enterprises. only then did they give him costumes to turn into robots. So why in the trailer is his company's namesake about costumes? And also, not only is he making costumes and robots, but he's also making much more, considering what we see around the factory. Not only that, but look at the actual interior. It's nothing like the book. In the original story, he bought out an old abandoned lace factory and renovated it slightly so he and his family could live in it. The book explicitly states he never got to truly renovate it or even hire employees as he wanted to, but in the trailer, we see it entirely renovated with Phasma imagery and Phasma technology nearly everywhere. We even see posters targeted at employees and a mailbox sorting through mail, as if there's too much for a normal human to handle. It's as if Edwin's company was successful in the games. And I know one may say since the game follows the end of the Mimic story, that can't be the case, but riddle me this. How does Fazbear renovate a facility between Team B and Team C if everyone who went inside before dies? Yeah, I just find it very unlikely personally. With that in mind, it seems as if Edwin may have been more successful in the games, having gotten what he wished he had in the books. And you know, honestly, doesn't it seem very interesting that in the book, Murray is depicted as a failure, whose company failed and was basically saved by Fazbear, while the real Murray wasn't a failure with a failed company and was actually very successful, being a contractor to Fazbear instead of being bought out. Sounds a lot like TalesFiction to me, since the Mimic story would be accurate in that the general events as described are true, but the version you're reading is not what actually happened. Reality is different. The secret of the Mimic is showing us the real story, rather than Fazbear's version. And anyway, what secret is there to tell if that book is literally one-to-one that happens? But anyway. Now of course, it is just a trailer. The full release may clarify these contradictions, and my point becomes moot. But if we operate with what we got, it does seem to be this way until proven otherwise. Regardless, I absolutely love that trailer and I'm very excited for the game. But now, let's return back to the original video. There is various other minor pieces of evidence across the series, but I think these bigger ones get the point across. But what does this mean generally for us across the board? How should we use the books? Well, let's return to the Ultimate Guide, which is overseen by Scott, especially in regards to Frights. It says this: sometimes fiction, particularly short fiction, can provide a window to important concepts, characters, and technology. These elements can help resolve mysteries of the past or see new things to come, while also serving as a genuinely terrifying read. The Fastest Fright series offered all this and more. The Ultimate Guide says Frights provides a window to important concepts, characters, and technology, and that these windows help us resolve past mysteries but also hint at the future. This literally tells us how to use Fastest Frights, and by extension, Tales of the Pizzaplex. What is said in the Ultimate Guide is exactly what we see in Frights. Everything, and I mean everything Frights seeks to answer, can fall under a concept, a character, or a technology. To give a few examples, we have concepts. The concept that is explored in Frights is Remnant. We see this with Talbot, who lore dumps Remnant, and tied to Remnant is the concept of emotional energy, which is given a lore dump by Taggart and is explored across the whole storyline of Frights. We also see emotional energy like love explored with Jake, and stories like Fetch explore the 0-point field and how that implicates everything in the series. If you want more examples, consider the Man Room 1280 giving a window to how UCM works, and the characters of Afton and the Vengeful Spirit, whoever that may be. Jake is even a puppet-like character, carrying others in his arms and giving happy estates to all the trapped souls at the end of the story. His character is a window to the puppet's character. His story resolves when happy estate even is. These are just but a few of the very explicit windows. For Tales, obvious ones would be AR technology and the Mimic, but of course that's not all of them. This is how I believe we're meant to use the books. Use the windows they give us and choose important concepts, characters, and technology, and use them to help resolve the lore. And what FrightsFiction does here is actually explain why the books seem to contradict or inconsistent with the games. That's because they're fiction. They're not the real thing. Fazbear made them. But FrightsFiction also keeps the books relevant since Fazbear takes inspiration from real things. So even if it's not completely accurate, there is a basis or inspiration for the story. You can't by default, for example, dismiss characters like Andrew, Eleanor, or Edwin, or anyone else in the books, since the idea likely stemmed from somewhere, but it also doesn't mean Andrew has to be real, as he could have been inspired from someone else. This means the problems of both sides. Team Parallels often dismisses the books, picking out very subjective parallels, while Frights games and Tales games often dismiss the contradictions the books have in the games or any theme or parallel evidence. FrightsFiction resolves these contradictions and allows for parallels and themes to be used as evidence, but also allows for theorizing on how characters and events from the books could translate to the games. It maintains a mystery while also narrowing it down enough to help us resolve the lore, as explained by the Ultimate Guide itself. The answers are mainly through the windows, but Scott left enough there to keep speculation and theorizing. You answer some mysteries and create more in turn. That's the fun part. We kind of forgotten in all these very kind debates. But of course, all theories are not without their problems, and FrightsFiction is no exception. And while I do believe everything above does work, that doesn't answer the general issues some may have with the idea of the books being in-universe fiction, but I do believe they are answerable and can even be used to support FrightsFiction instead. Now let's address some of the common objections I've been given about FrightsFiction. One of the most common objections I've seen to FrightsFiction is that it seems to contradict the plan of how it wanted, which shows Fazbear Entertainment hiring an indie dev to discredit the true events of the past and create a false perception that it's all fake, making Fazbear seem like a great company. Meanwhile, Frights and Tales depict Fazbear Entertainment as pretty much just pure evil at times. My response to this is pretty simple. Let's see what Tape Girl actually said.
They lied to us. They lied to all of us. They told us that the whole point of this VR game was to undo the bad PR done by a rogue indie game developer who supposedly made up a bunch of crazy stories that tarnished the brand. But that's not true at all. In their haste to develop this VR game and clear their name, they sent us some things I don't think they intended us to see, such as a hard drive containing emails between Fazbear Entertainment and a certain indie developer. Fazbear Entertainment hired the game developer. Those indie games were designed to conceal and make light of what happened. This isn't just an attempt to rebrand. It's an elaborate cover-up, a campaign to discredit everything.
What Tape Girl basically tells us is that Fazbear is playing 6D chess. They hired the indie dev to make the indie games to discredit and defame Fazbear and make light of what happened, only for Fazbear to turn it to a mockery by embracing the image, concealing everything. That was the elaborate cover-up. So while yes, the indie dev was hired by Fazbear, the point of the games was to discredit the company, so then Fazbear could rebrand and conceal everything by embracing the image and mocking the VR game. Keep in mind as well that the indie games are mostly close to the games we play, with some notable inaccuracies and differences. These games, however, do depict Fazbear as greedy, callous, and evil. So with this in mind, the books wouldn't make Fazbear look bad because it's simply combining all those aspects from the indie games in a book form. Another common objection though usually revolves around Tales. For example, GGY is meant to show what happens before security breach, with Gregory and the therapist takes revealing that Gregory is patient 46 who murdered the therapist. Meanwhile, the Mimic's meant to show the origin of, well, the Mimic, with the epilogues explaining how it got to the Pizzaplex in Security Breach and Reewyn. So why would these stories be in-universe if they're likely accurate to the truth? The answer to that is also relatively simple. If TalesFiction is correct, then stories like GGY are just based on the events of Security Breach, much like how the indie games were based on the classic games. The books are inspired by real events. It's a tale from the Pizzaplex. A story, a rumor, a legend. It being a tale or a story doesn't mean it's not true or completely false. You're just learning it from the teller of the tale, to paraphrase Gibby there. The same logic applies to the Mimic. These are tales based on real or true events. TalesFiction does not mean none of it is true, even if some things may not translate directly to the games. The Mimic is real, and its creator is Edwin, and he put the pieces together. That's where the story came from. Even Five Nights at Freddy's, a game that exists in-universe, references Edwin and his company. And if Edwin was such a disliked character by Fazbear as he is in Tales, why would they put him in the game? Unless he's also a character of theirs, but also real. The same way William, Charlie, or any other classic character is in Frights. Another very common objection I've seen is about the Help Wanted story itself in Tales, which depicts Fazbear torturing the indie dev Steve Snodgrass with illusion discs to create the original indie games. Wouldn't this be Fazbear outing themselves? I don't think so. Like I explained earlier, these stories follow the same theme as the games, depicting Fazbear as cartoonishly evil, so over the top that it's unbelievable. Help Wanted 1, a game in-universe known as the Freddy Fazbear's Virtual Experience, calls the indie dev a lunatic who defamed them.
We know that Fazbear Entertainment has developed something of a bad reputation over the last few decades, and while it's true that some stories associated with our name were loosely based on actual events, the majority of them were total fabrications from the mind of a complete lunatic. Lawsuits pending. But we aren't above laughing.
If Fazbear's in-universe game is calling the indie dev a lunatic that defamed them, wouldn't a story mocking the claims and rumors by portraying Fazbear as this cartoonishly evil company actually make it more doubtful and unbelievable? It's definitely a fair counter, but I do believe it works with the plotline Scott has given. Now, the last but honestly most fair objection I've seen though is that there's no smoking gun or direct piece of evidence that the books exist in universe. And you know, you got me there, but I don't believe it's absolutely needed. These books were always treated differently and more cryptic since the very start, and I believe Scott wanted us to find small clues and inferences to put these pieces together, instead of like, I don't know, selling a physical book of Into the Pit and Security Breach or something. Now, does it weaken the theory that there's not a direct piece of evidence that the books exist in universe? Yeah, for sure, but I don't think it hurts it as much as one would assume. As for the more recent Into the Pit game and Return to the Pit, well, those deserve their own videos and I'll go for this one, but I may cover them eventually, but not for a while. Now, all the issues I just went over are very fair and valid problems with the theory, but I do think the answers I provide are solid counter-arguments. Now, the rest of the theory, I do really believe Scott does intend the books to be in-universe fiction, but hey, I'm just one guy, I could be completely wrong. However, I do think there is something we should clearly take from Scott's comment on Reddit about the books. He's done this before at Mango's Gender and the FNaF Fleet ending. If he is saying the exact same thing here, then it should carry the exact same weight, and it shouldn't be ignored or dismissed. So I encourage you, whether you believe FrightsFiction or not, to really consider that statement and think how the books can both be canon to the games and not at the same time. Scott gave us an answer. Now it's up to us to figure out what it truly means. The more minds you have working on this, the closer we can get to solving it. So I encourage you all once again to theorize and share your thoughts on the true answer here. The more ideas, the better. Also, I want to take this moment to give a quick shout out to my friend Zada for being a real homie. He's helped me out a lot recently, and has even got me more into the Sonic franchise, which I do actually quite like. So he deserves a nice shout out for that. Also, special thanks as well to the voice actors who came onto this video. Their names are on screen and in the description. I think they did absolutely fantastic. Thank you a lot. With all that said, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I do appreciate the support. Thank you everyone for watching. See you next time.
You did it. The corruption will begin to wither and soon die. But we are not done. There is a glitch within the code. He is within it. They have become one. We must find them, discover the secrets they hide. But I do fear what we will find will be worse than them. That it will be her.